Hi, I'm Kate Snow, the author of the Math with Confidence series, and today I just want to do a quick video to talk about independence in fifth grade Math with Confidence. So when I started to pilot test fifth grade Math with Confidence, I heard a lot from my pilot testers about how they were looking for their kids to be just a little bit more independent in math in fifth grade. They told me about how their kids were feeling more grown up and mature. Some of their kids wanted a little space and to not always have their mom telling them what to do in math. They talked about how they were worried that they couldn't necessarily teach fifth grade math. They saw the fractions and decimals coming and were a little bit concerned that they'd mess it up. And most of all, they were concerned about time. If you have a fifth grader, there's a good chance you have a third grader, first grader, preschooler, a baby, or some of the above. And so you've got a lot to do in a day. And as you have more kids who are school age, that means more math lessons every day. So I understand these are really true realities. You've got a lot going on when you're a homeschool parent. But at the same time, learning math well really requires a teacher. And that's at any age. Math just keeps on getting harder and harder. It gets more and more challenging, more and more complex. And anybody who's learning math really needs an instructor along the way to help them. You need somebody with you to explain and model the concepts. You need somebody to encourage you on the hard days and answer your questions when you don't understand something, and just to feel encouraged and that you have some accountability, that somebody cares whether you're understanding or not. When kids are given too much independence in math too soon, they're often very likely to just sort of match the patterns they're seeing in the textbook without going for any deeper understanding. And that just creates a foundation that crumbles in the dust once harder concepts are put on top of it. And I know for me, I took math through college. I majored in math in college, and I needed an instructor every single step of the way. And if you think back to your own math education, I bet there are very few grades where you think, oh, I could have just read my textbook and figured it out for myself. Having a good teacher there to guide you is very important for success and confidence in math. And so when my pilot testers raised these concerns about wanting more independence in math, I took them really seriously because I want to make Math with Confidence as user-friendly as possible for you and your child. But at the same time, I wanted to write a book that was genuinely helpful. I don't want to write a book that doesn't actually help your kids learn math well. And so what I did is that I looked for ways to just modify the instructions slightly to make your teaching time as short and powerful as possible, so that your kids aren't just like left to flounder as they tackle all these harder topics. And so there's a couple different ways that I did that. So first of all, in the student workbooks, you're going to see a lot more printed on the lesson activities pages. Each lesson in Math with Confidence is 3 pages: a lesson activities page, a practice page, and a review page that reviews previous concepts. And on that lesson activities page, you're going to see quite a bit more text and more printed examples. So I know this is going to be backwards, but all of the samples I show you are in the sample that's available on my website. I'll link to that. So even though it looks backwards here, you'll be able to look at it in person. So this is the very first lesson, 5th grade Math with Confidence, and it reviews mental math techniques. And so you can see that the steps are listed and then some printed examples. Now, you're not meant to just show this to your kid and use this. There is still a full scripted lesson in the instructor guide that will walk you through the whole thing step by step. It includes some wrinkles that are not listed in the student book, so you want to make sure that you use that scripted lesson. A lot of the pilot testers found that it just made things simpler and faster, that they weren't writing quite so much out for their student, and that they had that printed right there so they could read through it together, talk through the examples, use the instructor guide to make sure that they weren't missing anything, to talk through the concepts behind those steps. And so that was just a big change that you'll see throughout this book to streamline your teaching. Reading these little text boxes together throughout the book also will help your child learn math study skills. Reading math is very different from reading a story. And so by reading these together throughout 5th grade and throughout 6th grade, your child will just gain a lot more confidence with reading math that will prepare him or her for pre-algebra, algebra, and beyond, where textbook math becomes more important. There's also fewer manipulatives in 5th grade. You'll still find plenty of them, but a lot of kids don't need as many manipulatives as they become more abstract thinkers and as their brains mature. So you can adjust your level of manipulative use to your child. There's often included more as suggestions or options rather than a must-do. And the other thing that's really helpful about having this all printed is if you don't quite remember how to divide fractions or what it means to multiply a fraction by a fraction, it's all printed there in the book for you. So you can still use the script instructor guide to help with the instruction, but you have a printed example that you know is correct waiting for you on that lesson activity page, so you don't have to worry about if you got the answer right when you work out those questions with your student. And there's also, there's still lots of games, lots of real life applications of math in 5th grade Math with Confidence, but there's also more one-player games, which are more like puzzles for your child to do, so that, if you don't have time to play a game or your child just doesn't feel like it's babyish to play a game with mom when doing math these days, there's some one-player games that help you kind of overcome that. And so this is way towards the back of the book. Don't worry if this looks like a lot for your child. This will be towards the end of 5th grade. This is a lesson here on multiplying decimals, and at the bottom there's a one-player game where your child rolls a die and decides where to place the roll before multiplying it, trying to get those products in line from least to greatest. So it works on understanding what decimal multiplication is. It helps your child do some estimation of products, and also gives us plain old practice with the skill of multiplying a decimal by a whole number. So you'll see those one-player games throughout 5th grade Math with Confidence, just so that there aren't quite so many two-player games. There's still two-player games, but there's a mix so that you have more options and so that your child has a chance to do those on their own sometimes. So those are some ways that the lesson activities pages are a little different, just to make the most of your teaching time. Beyond that, I've also included some resources for the practice and review pages so that your child can be more independent while they're working on that practice and review page. First and foremost, those printed examples on the lesson activities pages are really helpful. So here in lesson 1.1, your child will do a maze to practice that mental math that they learned. And if they forget how it works, they can just flip right back to the lesson activities page, look at the steps, look at the printed examples, and see what to do. Each lesson in Math with Confidence also has a review page where your child will practice skills that they've already learned. And if your child has trouble with those, I've included unit reference pages at the back of the workbook. And what these are is basically the teaching boxes from all of the lesson activity pages in one place. So if your child, say, is working on volume and can't remember the formula, they can look right here and say, oh, right, it's length times width times height, and here's how I apply that to a problem, and then can use that to complete their review pages. So those are all in the back of both workbooks, both in Part A and in Part B. And then beyond those features that will help your child work more independently on their practice and review pages, I also recommend just taking advantage of your child's increasing maturity. You know your child best, you decide what works for you, but a lot of kids at this stage are ready to check their own work. All of the answer keys are in the instructor guide, and if you just stick a sticky note on the answer key for the current lessons, your child might be able to check their own work, find their mistakes, and maybe even fix them. Another thing I recommend for kids at this age is that if they're working on their practice and review pages and they hit something like, oh, I don't know what to do, I want to go ask mom, train them to put a question mark there, to put a sticky note right there next to that problem, and to keep going with the rest of the page. Because often once kids just keep going and then come back to it, they know the answer. It turns out they didn't actually need help anyway. And that helps them build confidence in themselves, and it also prevents them from interrupting you and needing quite so much of your attention as they're doing their practice and review pages. So like I said, I really respect the fact that homeschool parents are busy and that a lot of parents are looking for their kids to have more independence in 5th grade. And I hope that with these new features in 5th grade Math with Confidence, you can continue building on this really strong foundation you have built with your child with whole numbers in kindergarten through 4th grade, and help them to continue to develop that kind of confidence with fractions, decimals, percents, and all of the new concepts that are coming their way in 5th and 6th grade as they get ready for more abstract thinking later in the middle school and high school years. I hope you have a great year with 5th grade Math with Confidence, and I wish you happy math. Thanks.